Hi, everyone, and welcome to podcast number 002. I have a very special guest today who's also a dear friend of mine. I've known Guy Norman B for well over 20 years. We worked together back in Chicago on the television series ER. And Guy has worked on some of the biggest TV shows on network television, and he's also worked on a lot of big feature films, which include Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me, Magnolia, and Titanic. And he's also worked on Criminal Minds, Veronica Mars, Southland, and Vegas. He's been a 30-year veteran of the International Cinematographers Guild, and he has been a member of the Directors Guild of America for the past 20 years. Please help me welcome my dear friend and guest today, Guy Norman B.
Yeah, about 10 months away from 30 years as a member. And even though I don't really work too much as an operator, at least in the last 20 years, and the odd day here and there, I still pay my dues and membership and all that, and stay, kind of active in what's going on with IATSE here, because I'm a card-carrying camera operator. And I used to joke around and say I want to keep it because I like getting the magazine once a month. So, which is, it's not too far from the truth. But yeah, I never gave it up. I mean, it's you never know. You never know when I might have to jump back on and start operating the camera again. Yeah.
There you go. So now you grew up in Florida, right?
Yeah, like? Miami, born and raised in Miami. When I was 10, I think we moved right around when I was 10, we moved to the Central Florida, Orlando area, a suburb of Orlando. My dad was a phone company, AT&T, and they transferred him up there. And so so from 10 to when I graduated high school, 17, 18. And I graduated high school and immediately went to the West Coast to make movies. I thought New York would be too cold, so I always wanted to see California and hang out in California. So I've been a citizen of California, and specifically Southern California, for almost 35 years. It's 84, 85. I finished up my last 2 years of college at Cal State Long Beach, and right out of college, I went to work for a rental house. I think you and I have a similar background as far as that goes. Mm-hmm. And we rented motion picture cameras, and we were the rental division of the company that manufactured and had all the patents for Steadicam. And I was fascinated by that machine. If you ever saw The Shining or Rocky or Marathon Man, you saw early Steadicam, and I was fascinated by how that worked. So once I went to work there and started working and playing around with Steadicam, we rented 2 of them, and I took them sort of under my belt and teched them and made sure that everything when somebody rented it, everything that went out the door they needed was in the box. And when it came back, I checked everything back in, cleaned it up, color coded everything. And I ended up taking a workshop from Garrett Brown, the inventor. I always thought I was too small to do it because it's, it's a monstrous amount of equipment. It's heavy, 75 pounds in the day with a big full-blown Panaflex. And, Garrett was the one that said to me, look, it's the discipline to do Steadicam is more like being a long distance runner, or ballet dancer, or matador. It's kind of how you move your body. And in fact, the big muscular guys, it's tougher for them because they're not only are they carrying around 35 pounds of camera, but also their own body weight. So being lithe and skinny and wiry is actually an advantage. Long distance runner pedigree is a good way to describe it. So with that encouragement, I started working on trying to get a career going, doing that. At the time, there was a lot of low budget, independent, non-union stuff to do in Los Angeles. So I kind of went out on my own, 89, 99, and 91, I got in the guild. So that would have been, early, a lot of music videos. But it was fun is you work with Warrant on Monday, Prince on Wednesday, and NWA on Friday. It was the craziest. And then they'd say, hey, we're going to shoot Queensryche or Suicidal Tendencies or something, and we're going to meet up with them in Wisconsin. So we all get on a plane to Milwaukee, and 30 of us would descend on LAX in various states of being hungover and or drunk, because there was nobody there over the age of 30. And we'd show up and we'd get on the plane together. We'd fly there. We had our own tour bus. It was like a gang, and we'd do the great swing was because there was 3 huge college towns: Milwaukee, La Crosse, and Madison. And we would park for a day at each one of those cities and shoot whatever band we were shooting. So great fun. I mean, that was I would say I was 27 And just, yeah, we get maybe a couple hours of sleep and then get right back on the bus, sleep into the next city.
The good old
Um,
days. I remember being
yeah, so
I did a concert in Wisconsin, and actually in Madison with Skid Row, and that was insane.
I so yeah, I mean, I was able to compile enough days because I would get a copy of my check stub, my deal memo, my call sheet, and I everything in triplicate, one for me, one for this company contract services, who was able to substantiate if you had enough days in your category to be admitted to the union, and then one in case both of those, caught on fire or something. So I had enough days in March of '91, got into the guild then, and so I was just saying that the end of '99, beginning of 2000, I got in the Directors Guild. So I'm a 20-year Directors Guild member now, which is kind of interesting.
Wow.
Kind of flew by, it's amazing. Yeah.
I remember that first job that you told me about. You called me from New York. You were working on what was the Third Watch? And
Yeah.
you were going to get an
Which was,
opportunity to direct, which was so great. I mean, my gosh.
well, yeah, that was my deal with, the John Wells. I had a great relationship with him and Chris Chulak, the two main producers on ER, because I did the first 2 years of ER, and it was great fun to sort of set that look and style, all that Steadicam, or at least maintain it. I mean, it was set in the pilot. I came in like episode 6 or 7, but did 2 seasons, and they knew I was hankering to direct, and that at some point I was going to get a shot, but we didn't know where, and so it was at the beginning of '98. I think John Wells called me and said, I'm doing these 2 pilots. One called I can't remember, but it was set in New York, and then the other one was going to be directed by sort of my mentor Chris Chulak in DC and Baltimore, called The Adversaries, and that's where you and I got to work on that together.
Right. Yeah. He
And
took
that was,
the whole camera crew from ER from Chicago. That was a great opportunity. That was a lot of fun. That show.
yeah,
Phillips and
yeah. I mean, yeah, I remember they hired Bill Butler, who Jaws to me is the movie that made me want to be a director. And so Bill and I met in LA, and I said, I don't know anybody in Baltimore. I know a few guys in New York, but there's a whole crew in Chicago of guys, and Chris Chulak already knows them because the ER connection there. So a couple calls were made, and next thing you know, we all convened in somewhere in Baltimore.
Yeah.
But so that was '98. That pilot, my deal with them was if it got paid, and that was with Lou Diamond Phillips, who's I still run into to this day, still still reminisce about that pilot. And so the deal was if it gets picked up and goes to a series, that they were going to let me direct an episode. Well, it ended up not getting picked up. And so a year later, John calls me again and goes, "Hey, we got 2 we're going to do again. One's about the president and all the people that work for him in the West Wing of the White House, and the other one is about cops and firemen and paramedics on the streets of New York." And while I read both scripts, and while West Wing was beautifully written and the cast was great and it was going to be at Warner Brothers' home, it was sort of described to me by the director Tommy Shalami as we're going to try and do ER in the White House, all those handoffs going down hallways and going around things. And I said, all right, cool. So I read Third Watch, cops, firemen, shootouts, raging fires, foot chases through alleys. I said, this is the one that I really want to do, because I could see myself directing an episode of that. And so that was my deal. I jumped on the Third Watch, kind of moved to New York, beginning of '99, and then back again at the end of '99 to start the series, or the fall of '99, and then I got my first shot to direct December of '99 into January of 2000. So 20 years, almost exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I want to rewind just for a second, because I don't know if I've ever heard your story about what made you want to get into the film industry. What was it that that you sort of like, you had your everyone's got this story. They had this moment where something like just lit up inside of them and they knew that that's what they wanted to do. That must have been really young for you, because if you were, you were in Florida and then
Yeah,
you moved straight to California to go to school and finish up and get into the
yeah.
business.
There was a couple of those moments. I remember I was about 6 or 7 years old. My parents used to go on cruises all the time because I grew up in Miami. And so it was a hop, skip, and a jump to go down to the port and up on a cruise ship to Nassau. So my parents would go for a week, and I'd stay with relatives. They made friends with a couple from Brooklyn, and so they said, "You guys got to come up to Brooklyn and hang out this summer. We'll take you all around." And my mom grew up in Brooklyn. I had never been. My dad, I don't think, had ever been. So the 4 of us, my sister, me, and mom and dad, went to Brooklyn. And coming home from dinner, we're walking through Greenwich Village again, 6, 7 years old, and I see way down the block these bright lights. super bright lights. So of course, like moths, we all kind of went towards the bright lights, and they were giant, lights up on cranes. And I saw this other crane with a couple guys pointing, and it kind of floated down, and a horse-drawn carriage pulling up to the front of an apartment complex. I think they had fake snow, and it was some kind of commercial for some liquor or something. But I just went at that moment. I said, I want to be that guy on that thing going down and pointing. And
Wow, that's
um,
awesome. That's almost
I
exactly how my story took place when we were in Alcatraz. I saw that film crew. I was like 16 years old, and we take this 2-hour tour of Alcatraz, and we came out, and there was a whole crew set up, and I was like, oh my God, it was like this bolt of lightning. I pointed just like you. And I'm like, I want to do that. And I took a picture of a guy holding a cup of coffee with Ray-Bans on, sandy brown hair, mid-step, cigarette in one hand, Panaflex camera on the ground on a hi-hat.
right.
And I didn't find out who that was until literally over 20 years into my career. I happened to be at Panavision in Woodland Hills, and I was talking to Mike Weldon, and I told him how I sort of got inspired to be, a camera person in the industry. And I said, yeah, I was with my family in San Francisco and Alcatraz, and we came out from taking this thing, and he goes, oh yeah, he goes, I was on that show. I'm like, what? You got to be kidding me!
Yeah.
Who was on that show? And he goes, well, it was Steve St. or Mike St. Hilaire was the operator. I'm like, that's who that was. It was St. Hilaire. And I ended up working with him on a pilot that I think John Abnett was directing. It was a pilot. I can't remember the name of it, but Sally Field was in it. And I finally got a chance to work with Mike St. Hilaire. And I'm like, dude, I took a picture of you when I was 16 years old. And here I am. Like, I feel like I'm meeting, it was just one of those moments where everything kind of came around full circle. Like, finally, the mystery's been solved.
Yeah, Mike St. Hilaire used to always say, like, the director would say cut, and he'd go, very nice. Now, every once in a while, as a director, I'll go, cut, very nice. That's my homage to Mike St. Hilaire. He was like
Yeah,
an operator's operator.
yeah,
Good man. Probably retired now if the math works out. I think he's retired.
yeah.
Yeah, I
That's
mean, it
awesome.
just I always like to tell stories. I love jokes. And at 10 years old, I saw Jaws, and it scared the crap out of me. And I said, I want that's powerful. That kind of storytelling I'm interested in, or just horror movies with my big sister when we were 8, 7, 9, whatever kids, and seeing the power of film and storytelling. My before when you and I were kids, there was no VCRs or DVRs. If a movie aired, you had to watch it,
Right.
and you couldn't go down to rent it, or you couldn't get it off a streaming service. So I would go to sleep as a kid, and my mom would shake me at like 11 o'clock at night and go, you got to watch this movie. I saw this when I was your age or whatever. So my mom used to wake me up to watch movies. And there was a couple I remember, because she was a fanatic. And um so yeah, it's a combination of all that stuff. And then I didn't know what I didn't know. I just thought you go to college, you study film, you get out, they give you a script, you get to direct it. And if you're good, they let you direct another one. I mean, and I often say, if I'd have known now what I knew then about the fight and the competition, I mean, I think anybody in the arts, actors as well, especially.
Yeah,
But
let's
you
talk
kind
about
of go
that. I
through
think that's a
life.
really important thing. I think people they think like, oh, you do this, and it cracks me up on here. People that say, yeah, I'm gonna go to LA and like give it a shot. I'm gonna give it like 6 months. And like,
Yeah,
it's like you've had a very like some people are just really in the right place at the right time and get great connections. And there's other people that just work their butt off and they never get anywhere. I mean, how do you what would you say to somebody that wanted to like obviously pursue either directing or camera work and like how it's like there's so many different ways. You ask 10 people how they got in the business, you get 10 different answers.
yeah, truly. And it is a bit of luck and karma and destiny and fate, right place, right time. I mean, the basics are simple. If you have enough of a connection and you are savvy enough to kind of figure out how to get your foot in the door the first time, and there's a number of ways to do that. It used to be like when I got started, there was like magazines, Backstage, or the Hollywood Reporter, or Variety, where they would talk about the different productions that were coming up, and you would cold call, blind call, and say, "I want to work as a PA, production assistant," which is the lowest on the totem pole, but it's where you see how every department works together, and you see you work as a PA for one movie, and or maybe you don't know that I want to go in that department, whether it's props, wardrobe, lighting, grip. Um, so it's a great entry level, but the foundation is be willing to come in earlier than everybody and be willing to stay later than everybody. To have when your boss says go home, you're doing the right thing. When your boss says, "Hey, you could just say yes?" Um, it's a sacrifice. It's like, the guys that sit there and look at their watches and have their sunglasses on, ready to get home and have their keys in their hand. They may have a good career, but they're not going to have a great career. And that's the one thing that work ethic, drive, that can't sort of be taught. But it's a tip that I would say has served me well.
Right.
Um,
And you've always had a
uh,
great attitude, which is what it's always been fun with working with you. It's like it never felt like work, and it's like you're gonna be standing around. It's a minimum 12-hour day. I tell it to people all the time, and a lot of times it's like a 14-hour day or a 16-hour day, and it's like you want to be around people that you're having a good time with. And if someone is sitting there complaining or whining or just having like they're just showing up for
yeah,
a paycheck, they kind of stand out really quick. And with that said, the people that have really great attitudes, they stand out. I mean, look at Brian, our buddy Brian, Brian with a Y. We nicknamed him. He's like a showrunner for iHeartRadio now, and he was our intern on that little pilot we did in for North Hollywood.
yeah. I mean, people see things in you that you don't necessarily see in yourself. Um, and today's PA is tomorrow's head of a studio. That's been proven to me because hanging around long enough from like 88, 89, it's 30 plus years. I've seen in the trades or just passing or seeing in line at Starbucks, "Hey, what are you up to?" "Well, I'm doing this." And you go, "Wow, I remember when you were getting us coffee by the camera truck, whatever." And so that's the other lesson. The other foundation is be nice to everybody. There's no excuse for being a jerk. I mean, I chalk it up to my parents would be mortified if I ever spoke to somebody the way I've seen people get spoken to on sets. Um, yeah, no, look, I used to, if somebody had a bad attitude on a set, I used to bother me. Now I just feel sorry for them because this truly is and can be the greatest job on the planet. And anybody that doesn't enjoy every second of it, um, it's to be, you know, pit, I pity them. Um, yeah,
Remember
portal to
Bill Butler
portal.
said that to us one day on the way into work, and we were in I think we were in Baltimore in the crew van, and he was telling us stories about Rocky and about Jaws and Grease, and I remember him just saying, "This is the greatest business there is. We get to show up and we get to travel all over the world, and somebody else pays for it."
Yeah, they tell you, "Stop now. We're going to feed you over there." And you go over and you eat essentially free food. Um, no, to be paid to tell stories and to be creative and not have to wear a uniform or a name tag. I mean, that's the job for me. And so, it's a never ending because we're freelance. There's never any sense of security. So I always try to enjoy every second when I'm working because I'm also hustling up what I'm going to do next. That's
Right.
always in the back of my mind. And I've had really slow periods, and I've had like periods where I'm sitting in a hotel room just going, how many more days till I get to go home? But now, when I'm working, when I'm actually on set, um, that never enters the equation. It's all about creating something, and we're getting paid to kind of collaborate and be creative, and
Have
that's
fun
all
doing
I
what
ever
you love to
wanted.
do. Yeah. Well, you know what? You
Yeah,
brought up a really good point with the travel and stuff. A lot of people that are thinking about going into this business, there's a big price to be paid for it, and families get just hammered on or at risk a lot of the times. Like, what do you do to try to keep a balance with having, you're a dad and you're married and you've got a beautiful family, and how do you maintain all that balance when you're under such demand and having to travel and go all over the place to work?
well, I mean, when I'm busy and I'm working, I mean, the last couple of years I've done South Africa and North Africa. So you're not only are you not home, but you're 8-9 hours ahead or behind, or you're literally on the other side of the planet if you're in Africa. FaceTime helps, Skype. Um, I think FaceTime became a thing when Lulu, who's now 15, was about 2, and so she's kinda I know, it's crazy. So she's kinda grown up, um, 'cause I hardly ever work in LA. It's been about 8 years since I worked in LA. So she's hardly ever visited me on set her whole life. Um, but what's been fun is like I'll have like a lighting setup, and with my phone I can FaceTime her and take her around the set and say, "Hey, talk to here's Steven, he's Arrow," and then she can watch the episode of Arrow later that night. Go, I just talked to that guy. So FaceTime's helped. It's something that exploit and enjoy because it's essentially a free phone call if you have Wi-Fi available.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
How does it work with Lori? I mean, Lori, your wife is a script supervisor. She is busy a lot too. Has it been
yeah.
challenging where you're both working at the same time, or do you guys try to switch that off a little bit, or you just kind of go with it the best you can?
Yeah, it overlaps. We've had a series of like people that take Lulu to school, pick her up, get her fed, help her with her homework, and wait until one of us gets home. Because it's usually not me. Usually Lori's most of her like almost every job she's had, aside from like a pilot here and there that's only going to last like 12 days. She mostly only works in LA, so she can be home at night. Because I do a lot of Vancouver, out of Chicago, New York, Albuquerque, Wilmington, Montreal,
You're
Toronto.
like a flight attendant traveling all over the place.
Yeah, Marrakesh, Tangier, Cape Town. So,
What's been your
so
favorite
I,
place so far?
uh, they
Favorite
all
job,
have
favorite
great.
place.
Wow, that's tough. Look, I've done a ton of stuff in Vancouver for the last like 18 years. So I think I started working up there in 2002 as a director, and I'd worked up there in '92 as a camera operator. So I have a lot of friends there, and I just have here's my sushi place, here's my pho place, here's my ramen place, here's the best pizza, here's a good place to get good takeout, or I can call ahead. So I've got that place wired and dialed in. So that's like, but I do like to explore new places and just walk out of a hotel with no particular place to go, or say to the concierge, give me 3 places to go walk to from here. And, they're happy to show you their town, especially, we have that cinematic community. If they know you're part of a film crew
We got
and,
rose on carpet.
yeah, everybody's very helpful. So I did that in Tangier. I just walked out. I went to areas that I probably was not supposed to go to and just walked around and, just took pictures and hung out. And so I love doing that. Montreal was a lot of fun. I was there for 6 weeks. So I got to see a lot of cool stuff and made some good friends there. I mean, only because that's recent in my head. Am I kind of citing Montreal and Tangier. Marrakesh was interesting because you're walking along and everything's fine, and a monkey will walk in front of you, and you look over there and a cobra's coming out and of a thing, and the guy's playing the horn, the little horn, and you're like, how did I get here?
That's great.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
there's something else I wanted to ask you about. You're talking about traveling and work and things like that. Um, you've done so much stuff. I mean, you've worked on some of the biggest television shows in Hollywood, and you've directed on some of the biggest television shows in Hollywood. Is there something that you haven't done yet that you really would like to do, that you're passionate about, that you would forego all that other stuff and just say, I'm going to hold out and because this is what I want to do next?
Well, I've kind of been doing that. It's gotten to the point in my career. I mean, not that I'm frustrated, but if I have a slow time, I can't just sit and do nothing. And I'm suffering from terrible tendonitis because I built this shed last September for 2 months, and every time I lift the hammer up, it flares up. So I've built things, literally, giant structures, and I've done all the physical stuff, and I can't keep cleaning my desk and cleaning out sheds and all that stuff. So I started writing. I mean, I bought Final Draft when it was still, you could only buy it as a CD-ROM from the writer's store in Westwood in 96, 97. Because I knew it was a new language, and I said, well, I'm not a writer, but if I'm going to get my ideas down, I should put it in the format, because it's like learning a new language. And I'm not going to let anybody read anything for a while, but I'm gonna learn the language, teach myself the language. And so I dusted it off, I think summer of 18, so almost 2 years ago. And there was a series of things that inspired me, but I wanted to write like sort of a spec pilot, or at least write it well enough where I could give it to a real writer and they could do a draft. Um, and then be a content creator, because it's not like that's all that I want to do, but it certainly seems like the next logical thing for me to do. Because I've certainly read thousands of scripts and interpreted enough scripts that were written by other people. And I've learned a few things along the way. I'm really good at sitting with my writer. I get my first draft and I have a meeting with the writer, and I'll say, there's this scene where he gets out of the car and he tells the guy, "What are you doing? Why are you following me?" And, there's a lot of dialogue. It's very expositional. There's a much more cinematic way to do it. And I think we could shave 2 hours off the day if, which, the line producer's like, really? I mean,
Mhm.
but I won't
There it
hit
is.
the line producer to this idea until I get approval from the writer. But I'll say he could just get out and reach for a gun. That tells that story, and it's just much more cinematic. It's a series of images, and when that way, dialogue's great. And I'm a huge Mamet, uh, Tarantino, uh,
Coen
Milch
Brothers.
fan. Yeah, like great dialogue is like symphony. I mean, let's face it, Glengarry Glen Ross, right? The Verdict, great dialogue, I love. But I also love turning the sound off and following the narrative too. And so I've been good at describing what I want to see to a writer and having them interpret what I've described. So what's the difference other than me actually, writing fade in, exterior, parking lot, Westwood or whatever. So I started doing that. So I wrote something called El Asesino, which is the Spanish for the assassin, kind of a Coen Brothers like half hour dramedy, kind of Barry. Watching Get Shorty right now, which was an epic series that's now on Netflix. Kind of hopped up on Ozark and Bloodline, and sort of some dark drama, but also some absurdist Coen Brothers, Fargo, Big Lebowski style humor, because that's my style too. I mean that, and Barry and Get Shorty are sort of right in the ballpark if you know those shows of kind
Mhm.
of what I want to do. So I wrote El Asesino with the help of two producers. The three of us raised money to actually mount this thing as a spec pilot. So we shot for about 5.5 days, and hired some great actors, um, who were happy to come and do it. They all love the script, and shopping that around. I mean, it's sort of a perfect little Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, even Quibi. It's a new format thing. And I have faith that we'll find a home at some point. It's just tough. And then in the last couple months, it's been a really strange place to try and get people's attention to watch this thing, because it's 24 minutes, which isn't a huge commitment in time, but still, there's a lot of other more pressing issues than watching guys little spec pilot. Um, but in the meantime, I've written two more half-hour kind of spec. I mean, they could be hour longs, but I don't want to subject anybody to reading more than like 30 pages, because that's sort of how we did this as a why we shot it, because I kept hearing over and over, well, nobody reads pilot or nobody reads scripts anymore, guy. And so I'm like, well, what do I got to do? I raise the money and actually shoot it, and so we did. So anyway, I've got three spec things that I keep running up the hill, and or running up the flagpole and seeing who salute. I think Lulu. Have you seen Lulu lately?
I haven't. I haven't seen
Leading.
her since she was like, since I was in the living room. Hey, how's it going?
She's 15. We do driving lessons every couple days, and her hair is purple.
That's awesome.
It's crazy. Remember when she was like this
I
tall?
do. I remember
Seems
when
like
Taylor
yesterday.
was that big too.
Yeah, Taylor's coming up on 26.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I want to
She's
be
like,
respectful of your time and try not to go too long here. The last thing I wanted to ask you is you sort of kind of answered it a little bit, but I'd love to hear it from you. What would you say was your biggest challenge you faced in your career so far, and what has been your greatest victory? Which I think I probably know what that is because I know you so well. But for people that are watching this, I think it's great to show them here's the bottom. This is as bad as it ever got for me, and this is as great as it ever got for me, because it gives people a reference. So they decide they want to pursue this. It's kind of like to know what the rules of engagement are, or what am I in for? If I'm going to go pursue a career in the entertainment industry.
yeah, it's different in a lot of ways. I mean, when you and I got started, it was film cameras, and they were $250,000. And now if you go on Sammy's camera, you can buy your own red camera, and suddenly you're a filmmaker or a DP. So that was that's very different from when we got started. It was rental houses where you and I kind of got our start learning the gear from the ground up. Um, it's the no, just being open to the idea that it's very competitive, and that for every one of you sitting home waiting for that phone to ring, there's thousands of other people that are in a very similar place than you are. What's great that you and I didn't have, and the ability to go on Sammy's camera and buy a Blackmagic pocket camera, is we didn't have laptops, we didn't have Final Draft, we didn't have Final Cut Pro, we didn't have Blackmagic cameras. They used to talk about desktop publishing, where somebody could actually write up, find the clip art, and create your own magazine with your own computer on your desk, and take that floppy disk to Kinko's, and you could like create your own book. Desktop publishing, it's amazing. Well, now literally you are a desktop fucking studio. There's no excuse for anybody to not have. If you have an idea, get Final Draft, type it up. You don't even need Final Draft, but it definitely helps you with the format of a screenplay, because if you're going to send it to somebody, they have a stack of scripts on their desk and they're looking for amateur night, and if you don't have it in the right format, that's the first reason they're going to toss it in the trash. So I would recommend Final Draft. You can get that as a download, digital download. So you have the format, you can write it up. When you're done with that, you have the ability to shoot it with a camera, all the various, because you and I shot a bunch of spec stuff, which was just stuff that
Yeah, the
you could buy
DSLR
it.
days when the 5Ds first came out, that
Yeah.
Apple job we did at the Coke. Those still
Yeah, and I've got everything's here. I got a monopod, I got like the Fig rig, I've got the little Steadicam, here you go, right here.
That's awesome.
Yeah, there's your
the
film
future.
camera, there's your Dutch angle. Yeah, screw on lenses there, and so I've got an old iPhone 7. I think the battery's dead, but that becomes your viewfinder. You can do it with an iPad you're not using anymore too. But the point is that you can shoot something, and you go home and put it in Final Cut Pro, and you can cut it, and you can do After Effects and all these different effects, and from the most mundane lap dissolves to visual effects. So you can create your own film. Now, is that going to get you the attention of Paramount Studios, and they're going to hand you $100 million script for a $100 million film? No, but it'll certainly teach you the format. It'll teach you. You'll learn a lot, and you may be able to get it into festivals. And you never know. I mean, I always call. I try never to turn down anything when somebody asks for help or somebody needs something, or because you never know what today's PA is going to turn out to be in the future. I think again, it's very simple. If you have a strong work ethic, and you're willing to humble yourself, because the first guy that says I'm not emptying trash cans all day, forget it. Well, have a nice career not in the movie business, because you got to look at the big picture and look 100 miles down the road, which I guess I did. I mean, I remember driving all day, because when the rental house I worked at was an independent small rental house, and we represented a camera company that was from Austria called MovieCam. Panavision and Airflex were the big ones, but we were like the small little engine that could, independent. So subsequently, we didn't have all the gear in the world, so we get an order from like Vilmos Zsigmond wanted to shoot Fat Man and Little Boy and use our rental house. We were freaking out. But Vilmos wants all these filters. He wants all these different things. We don't have them, so we sub-rent them. So it's like, Guy, you're going to Claremont Camera. When you're done there, give us a call. Go to Otto Nevins, pick up this. When you're done at Otto Nevins, Paramount or Panavision's going to rent us this. So I'd be in the car all day, LA traffic, driving the company truck, which needed a tune-up and was horrible. I'd get back and I'd empty everything out, put it in the in the prep bay, and I'd be smiling. And my boss would look at me, Max, who I'm still friends with to this day, would go, "Why are you smiling?" I go, "I'm working in the movie business. This is the greatest." I met 2 camera assistants today at Claremont, who I may or may not still be friends with to this moment. So
So you say that
He shook.
doing all that grunt work at the beginning was like sort of like what most people look at, like, well, this sucks. I got to drive around here and do all these errands. But
Yeah,
you had such a great attitude. You looked at it as like, hey, I'm doing, I'm on my way to doing what I really want to do and what I love to do. And if this is the price I have to pay, then I have to pay it.
yeah. And that boss, who I'm, again, still friends with today, um, saw that in me. And while everybody kind of went off and did, the other, like the guys that I went to that were a year ahead of me that got me the job with Max, they went off and they have had great careers as camera assistants, camera operators. But Max would always, like, I'd stay late. We'd sit and have a snack after. We locked the door at 5, and or we put the phone machine on to the service, and we sit and talk for another hour in his office and talk about the life and the business and whatever and cameras. He would say, those guys are going to do fine, but you're going to do. There's bigger things for you somewhere down the line. I see it, and so who am I to argue with him? So I'd go, all right, great, and then. We're getting in the John Wells camp on ER. Those guys would take me to. That's how you and I got to know each other. Those guys would take me to Chicago, and
Would you
over
say that
dinner at.
your biggest victory was meeting John Wells and getting in that camp? Was that was the catalyst that really helped get you to the next level where you were trying to go?
Yeah, I mean, I fell into ER. I mean, I happened to run into a director who said I just did the episode 4 of this new show, and I went round and round with the camera operator. I couldn't stand him, and I was like, "What?" I mean, that was like that. That the camera operator is supposed to be your best friend. So I said, "Okay, you got to give me the details." And he kind of told me who it was. He told me about the show, and so he goes, "I'm going to call them, and I'm going to give them your name and number if you're into the gig." I go, "Look, it's a Warner Brothers. I live in Studio City. It's a 10-minute drive. I'd love to work in LA." And also Taylor, who's now almost 26, was about 8 months old at the time. So I was happy to stay. So, because I'd been on the road up until then a lot. And so go and have a meeting. We talk. They give me the gig, and I stayed there for 2 years. Um, the 2 seasons, because I had the summers off, obviously. But yeah, that was a fork in the road that I'm glad I stayed with, because Chris and John made me a director, but they over dinner and drinks at Shaw's Crab House or Rosebud, they would say, "What do you see yourself in a year?" And I'd say, "Well, if I stay with ER, will you guys let me direct?" And I said, "But more importantly, ER's on rails now. What do you have coming down the pike? I want to help set the look of the style of a pilot." Because I didn't get to do that with ER. I kind of, like I said, joined like episode 5 or 6 when they finally had it up to here with the original guy. And so they knew that. And so that's why 98 Adversaries, the thing that you and I did, they invited me to be part of. And then a year later, Third Watch in West Wing. So yeah, that was hindsight being 2020. I'm glad I stuck with that, because the grass is always greener, and you always go, maybe I should take that.
It's about choices, and you've made some great choices. I mean, it's been exciting to watch, the progression and just hanging out with you and working. And we go to places like at Paramount that you're seeing here, and like everybody knows you. And it's just, I wish there were more people that understood that, we are so blessed that we get to do what we love to do. And while there are new challenges that are coming down the road because of the digital age, and everyone sees the picture and they think, okay, well, it looks fine. Why can't we just shoot it? I always tell people, hey, look, Thanksgiving dinner smells really good 2 hours in, but the turkey's got another hour to go. It's not ready yet. So, but I think there's been we covered some great ground here, man. I just so appreciate your time. I know you got a lot of stuff going on that you're doing, and certainly
Talk for a while.
look forward to
Six o'clock
seeing more. I think Zoom's going to cut me off here, so I hate to cut the conversation off, because it's always really good with you, and I know there's a lot of people that are going to really enjoy this. So thanks for your time, and we're gonna I'll put a title card at the end of this, guy, so people can follow you on social media. I know you have a massive Twitter account following, and you're active on Instagram.
Cool. All right, man.
Anyway, so thank you guys for tuning in. My guest today and dear friend is Guy B, who is a fantastic episodic television director, as well as an amazing camera operator, and has helped pioneer a lot of the look of the early days of ER when it started off. You can check out his credits on IMDb. I'll post them at the end of this, but thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you guys again soon.